Hi everyone! This video today is designed to help you with CR number 7 on main idea and supporting details. So let's take a look at the question. The question says, summarize the main idea and key details of the text and explain how they support the author's argument. So, the question is asking us to state what the main idea is and explain it, and then pick out key details of the text and explain how those key details support the author's argument. So we've been talking about this all week. We've been looking for the main idea and those key details that support the main idea, and then how they support the author's argument. So that's the question. So let's take a look at the article that we're being asked to read. The article is actually a letter that's been passed around on social media called Don't Send Bottled Water by Michael Moore. All right, so we're still on the same topic about the Flint water crisis. So I'm going to read the article to you. Don't Send Bottled Water by Michael Moore. Many of you have contacted me wanting to know how you could help the people of Flint with the 2-year-long tragedy of drinking water contaminated by the radical decisions made by the governor of Michigan. The offer is much appreciated by those who are suffering through this and who have not drank a glass of unpoisoned water since April of 2014. Unfortunately, the honest answer to your offer of help is sadly, you can't. You can't help. The reason you can't help is that you cannot reverse the irreversible brain damage that has been inflicted upon every single child in Flint. The damage is permanent. There is no medicine you can send, no doctor or scientist who has any way to undo the harm done to thousands of babies, toddlers, and children, not to mention their parents. They are ruined for life. And someone needs to tell you the truth about that. They will forever suffer from various neurological impediments. Their IQs will be lowered by at least 20 points. They will not do as well in school, and by the time they reach adolescence, they will exhibit various behavioral problems that will land a number of them in trouble, and some of them in jail. This is what we know about the history of lead poisoning. When you inflict it upon a child, it is a life sentence. In Flint, they've already ingested it for these 2 years, and the toll has already been taken on their developing brains. No check you can write, no truckloads of Fiji water or Pollen Spring will bring their innocence or their health back to normal. It's done. And it was done knowingly, enacted by a political decision from a governor and a political party charged by the majority of Michigan's citizens who elected them to cut taxes for the rich, take over majority black cities by replacing the elected mayors and city councils, cut costs, cut services, cut more taxes for the rich, increase taxes on retired teachers and public employees, and ultimately try to decimate their one line of defense against all this thing we used to call a union. The amount of generosity since the national media finally started to cover this story has been tremendous. Pearl Jam sent 100,000 bottles of water. The next day, the Detroit Lions showed up with a truck and 100,000 bottles of water. Yesterday, Puff Daddy and Mark Wahlberg donated 1 million bottles of water. Unbelievably amazing. They acknowledged it's a very short-term fix, and that it is. Flint has 102,000 residents, each in need of an average of 50 gallons of water a day for cooking, bathing, washing clothes, doing the dishes, and drinking. I'm not counting toilet flushes, watering plants, or washing the car. But 100,000 bottles of water is enough for just 1 bottle per person. In other words, just enough to cover brushing one's teeth for 1 day. You would have to send 200 bottles a day per person to cover what the average American, we are Americans in Flint, needs each day. That's 102,000 citizens times 200 bottles of water, which equals 20.4 million 16-ounces bottles of water per day, every day for the next year or two until this problem is fixed. Oh, and we'll need to find a landfill in Flint big enough for all those hundreds of millions of plastic water bottles, thus degrading the local environment even further. Anybody want to pony up for that? Because that is the reality. This is a catastrophe of unimaginable proportions. There is not a terrorist organization on earth that has yet to figure out how to poison 100,000 people every day for 2 years and get away with it. That took a governor who subscribes to an American political ideology hell-bent on widening the income inequality gap and conducting various versions of voter and electoral suppression against people of color and the poor. It was those actions that led Michigan's Republican governor to try out his economic and racial experiment in Flint. And please don't tell me this has nothing to do with race or class. He has removed the mayors of a number of black cities. This and the water crisis in Flint never would have visited upon the residents of Bloomfield Hills or Grosse Pointe, and everyone here knows that. We have now seen the ultimate disastrous consequences of late 20th century neoconservative trickle-down public policy. That word trickle, a water-based metaphor, was used to justify this economic theory. Well, it's no longer a metaphor, is it? Because now we're talking about how actual water has been used to institute these twisted economic beliefs in destroying the lives of the black and the poor in Flint, Michigan. So, do you still want to help? Really help? Because what we need in Flint and across the country right now, tonight, is a non-violent army of people who are willing to stand up for this nation and go to bat for the forgotten of Flint. Here's what you and I need to do. 1. Demand the removal and arrest of Rick Snyder, the governor of Michigan. 2. Make the state of Michigan pay for the disaster that the state of Michigan created. 3. The federal government must then be placed in charge. Evacuate any and all Flint residents who want to leave. Now, for those who choose to stay in Flint, FEMA must create a temporary water system in each home. For a better world, Michael Moore. Okay, so that is the article for today. It's a letter. Whether you agree with it or not is really not the question. What I'm asking you to do, again, is to summarize the main idea of the article and the key details of the text that explain how they support the author's argument. Okay, so your CR, remember, should begin where you restate and answer the question. The question is right here. And then you are going to start coming up with some direct evidence from the letter, the article. So you're going to use quotations. And then you're going to explain each quotation. After you use your evidence that you are going to explain, you're going to sum up at the very end. And by summing up, you are going to restate your answer and your citations. A good way to start your summing up at the end is to say something like, to summarize, in conclusion, overall, etc. So that is today's CR. Please send me a message if you have any questions about what you're being asked. Have a great day, everyone.